Even if you get older and can't take care of yourself, don't rush into a nursing home. As we age, the question of where to live and how to maintain our independence becomes one of life's most important decisions. For many, the idea of moving into a nursing home brings both comfort and unease. But what if there were alternatives that allowed you to live independently, even as daily tasks become more challenging? In today's story, we'll introduce you to Edward, a resilient 72-year-old who found an unexpected path to happiness and self-reliance. Instead of rushing into a nursing home, Edward explored creative solutions that helped him preserve both his dignity and his connections to the community. By watching Edward's journey, you'll discover practical insights into companionship, financial stability, and emotional well-being, all essential to maintaining a fulfilling life as we grow older. You'll see how he turned simple relationships into lifelines of support, and how he built a system that lets him thrive in his own home, on his own terms. Stick with us to uncover the secrets of aging gracefully, embracing the wisdom of one's years, and finding joy and purpose at every step. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Share this journey with someone who could use a little inspiration for the path ahead. Let's dive in. 1. The power of companionship. Edward Peterson had always been an independent man. At 72, he still cherished his daily routines, the morning coffee at the kitchen table, the afternoon walks around his small neighborhood, the Sunday afternoons spent lost in the pages of a favorite book. But as time passed, Edward found himself struggling with the daily tasks he once performed with ease. Stairs became a challenge, grocery shopping became an exhausting ordeal, and the quiet solitude of his home sometimes turned into lonely, restless nights. Yet, the thought of moving into a nursing home or giving up his independence unsettled him. Edward didn't want to spend his final years in an unfamiliar place, surrounded by strangers. He wanted to stay in his own home, where his memories were etched into the walls, where he still felt a sense of belonging. One day, fate brought an answer to Edward's unspoken prayers. He met a young couple, Sarah and Tom, who had recently moved into the neighborhood. They owned a little market down the street, and over time they grew accustomed to seeing Edward on his daily walks. It started simply enough. On one particularly chilly afternoon, Edward had ventured out to the store without his gloves, and Sarah noticed his trembling hands as he handed over a few dollar bills. She offered him a cup of tea while Tom retrieved his groceries, and before he knew it, Edward was sharing stories about his younger days and laughing over memories that had long been buried under the weight of time. For Edward, this small act of kindness was a lifeline. He had not felt so seen or heard in years. As their connection grew, Sarah and Tom began to offer small gestures of support. They'd bring his groceries to his door when they noticed he was having trouble with his legs. If they saw his lawn looking a bit too overgrown, Tom would stop by on his way home to trim it, asking nothing in return. Edward, initially hesitant, was deeply touched by their care, but he struggled with the feeling of being a burden. He would thank them repeatedly, trying to find ways to show his appreciation. One day, as he invited them over for dinner as a gesture of thanks, he realized that what he had found was far more than just occasional help. He had found companionship, a bond of genuine friendship that filled the quiet spaces of his life with warmth and laughter once again. Their companionship blossomed naturally. Sarah and Tom, busy with their young daughter and business, found comfort in Edward's stories and the wisdom he offered, almost like a family member they hadn't realized they needed. They began spending evenings at his home, talking about life, sharing meals, and letting Edward read stories to their daughter, who was captivated by his gentle voice and the magic in his words. Edward, in turn, found his days brightened by the laughter of a child and the companionship of two caring friends. They shared their concerns, their joys, and their hopes, creating an environment where each of them felt valued and supported. For Edward, this friendship became a source of renewal. The ache of solitude was replaced by the anticipation of their visits, and he began to look forward to each new day. This companionship transformed his experience of aging, turning what had once been a lonely, slow march into a joyful, shared journey. Studies have shown that meaningful connections can significantly improve mental health, especially among the elderly. For Edward, this bond with Sarah and Tom brought him back to life, making his home feel less like a place he was stuck in and more like a vibrant part of his world. Edward's story is a testament to the profound impact that genuine relationships can have on the quality of life for seniors. It's a reminder that we all need connection, that even in our later years, companionship can make life vibrant and fulfilling. This bond became more than just a way to stay in his home. It became the reason he thrived within it, proving that sometimes the best support doesn't come from paid care, but from a heartfelt connection that fills life with meaning. 2. Creativity in living arrangements. Edward's newfound friendship with Sarah and Tom not only rekindled his sense of belonging, but also set the stage for a living arrangement that would allow him to age comfortably in his own home, maintaining both his independence and his dignity. As he got to know them better, Edward began to see a path that would keep him from moving to a nursing home. With a little creativity and open-heartedness from both sides, they found a way to support each other in ways that went beyond traditional elder care. This arrangement would allow Edward to preserve the life he cherished while also giving Sarah and Tom the support they needed. It all began when Edward, who lived on a limited fixed income, opened up to Tom about the challenges he faced with daily tasks and his struggle to afford consistent help. Nursing homes were out of the question for him, not only because of the cost, but also because he deeply valued the freedom and comfort of his own space. Moving into a facility meant abandoning everything he had built, and it felt like an end he wasn't ready to accept. Tom and Sarah, who were also managing on a tight budget, understood Edward's desire to stay in his home and appreciated his honesty. In their conversations, they realized there was an opportunity to create an arrangement that would benefit them all. One afternoon, as Edward and Tom sat on the front porch sipping iced tea, they began to lay the foundation of their unique plan. It was a practical yet compassionate arrangement, one that allowed Edward to retain his independence and saved him from the financial strain of a nursing home, while giving the young couple a modest income boost that would help them manage the rising expenses of their family and small business. The arrangement was simple yet effective. Edward offered to pay Sarah and Tom a small monthly amount, something manageable within his pension, in exchange for their help with everyday tasks around his home. They agreed to stop by daily to check in on him, assist with household chores, and help him with any physical tasks that he could no longer manage alone. They would also prepare meals for him a few times a week, bringing him home-cooked dishes that they knew he loved, and Edward would share some of his favourite recipes in return. At first, Sarah and Tom hesitated at the thought of accepting payment from someone who had quickly become a friend. But Edward insisted, emphasizing that he felt much more comfortable paying them for their help rather than relying solely on their goodwill. He saw this as a way to honor their time and effort, and he wanted to make sure they didn't feel taken advantage of. For Edward, paying them was not only a practical solution, but also a way of reinforcing his own independence and self-respect. He didn't want to be a burden. He wanted a partnership. The agreement evolved naturally over time. Sarah and Tom helped Edward run errands, pick up prescriptions, and keep his pantry stocked with essentials. When Edward's arthritis flared up, Tom took over mowing the lawn and maintaining the yard. On particularly difficult days, Sarah would spend extra time with Edward, sharing stories or reading aloud while he rested. This reciprocity fostered a rhythm that felt like family, blending care and independence in a way that preserved Edward's sense of agency. For Edward, this setup provided a way to age in place, retaining the comfort of familiar surroundings and the memories tied to his home. His days now held a routine that he cherished, one that included companionship without feeling like he was encroaching on anyone's life. For Sarah and Tom, this arrangement offered a small but meaningful addition to their income, which was especially valuable given the demands of raising a young child and running a local business. It allowed them to improve their quality of life without compromising on the time and energy they needed for their daughter. Edward's situation is a powerful reminder that creative, non-traditional living arrangements can offer elderly individuals the support they need without sacrificing their independence. By thinking beyond the typical models of elder care, he was able to create a system that gave him the best of both worlds. He enjoyed the autonomy of living in his own home and the reassurance of knowing that he had reliable support whenever he needed it. This flexible, personalized solution also shielded him from the often overwhelming costs of traditional care options, proving that with a little innovation, aging at home can be accessible and fulfilling. Third, maintaining financial stability. As Edward settled into his arrangement with Sarah and Tom, he knew that one of his biggest challenges was going to be maintaining his financial stability. Living on a fixed income meant that he had to manage every penny carefully. Like many seniors, he faced the challenge of stretching his savings and monthly pension far enough to cover essential needs while also preparing for unforeseen expenses. This careful balancing act required creativity, resourcefulness, and a deep commitment to financial mindfulness. Edward was determined to remain in his home and enjoy his independence without running through his savings prematurely. Edward's monthly income consisted mainly of his Social Security benefits, which, while steady, were limited. He had a modest nest egg from his years of working, but he was cautious about dipping into it, knowing that unexpected medical expenses or home repairs could arise at any time. Nursing home care or full-time caregivers were out of reach financially, and he preferred the privacy and comfort of his own home. So, Edward set out to make his budget work for him, determined to find economical solutions that would allow him to age in place with dignity and confidence. One of Edward's first steps was to take a close look at his monthly expenses. He listed out all his essential costs, including utilities, groceries, medications, and the small monthly payment he provided to Sarah and Tom in exchange for their help around the house. Then he reviewed discretionary spending, deciding where he could make adjustments. Edward noticed that he could reduce his energy costs by making small changes around his home. He began turning off unnecessary lights, unplugging appliances when not in use, and adjusting his thermostat just a few degrees to save on heating and cooling. These small adjustments made a noticeable difference over time, and he enjoyed the satisfaction of knowing he was doing his part for the environment while saving money. Groceries were another area where Edward found ways to save. While he loved the independence of preparing his own meals, he found that buying in bulk and planning his meals ahead helped him avoid the trap of impulse purchases. He kept a list of essential items and stuck to it, choosing simple, nutritious ingredients that were both affordable and easy to prepare. With a bit of help from Sarah, He also started exploring senior discounts at local stores and markets. She would often tell him about special deals or programs that he hadn't been aware of, allowing him to stretch his grocery budget without sacrificing quality. Edward came to appreciate the importance of community resources, and he encouraged his peers to take advantage of local support whenever possible. Additionally, Edward took advantage of online grocery ordering, a service he initially resisted but soon found invaluable. He appreciated that he could compare prices from home and stick to his budget without the temptation of in-store browsing. Sarah often helped him place orders, which were then delivered to the small market near his apartment, where he could pick them up without venturing far. This new routine saved him time and energy and allowed him to control his spending more closely. Edward also faced the reality of rising healthcare costs, which he knew could quickly eat into his budget. To manage his medical expenses, he researched his Medicare options, enrolling in a supplemental plan that covered some of his prescription costs. Although it required an upfront premium, Edward calculated that the coverage saved him money overall, especially for the medications he took regularly. He also spoke with his doctor about generic alternatives to his prescriptions, which provided him with effective treatment at a fraction of the cost. When Edward's arthritis made certain household chores more difficult, he initially considered hiring a caregiver for assistance. However, he found that hiring a caregiver for even a few hours each week was financially out of reach. Instead, he approached his neighbors, Sarah and Tom, with a plan. By compensating them modestly for their help, Edward found a solution that was both affordable and effective. The arrangement was beneficial for both sides, as it provided a supplementary income for Sarah and Tom while allowing Edward to receive consistent help without a heavy financial burden. Edward was also mindful about his emergency savings, knowing that unexpected costs could arise at any time. He resisted the urge to dip into his savings unnecessarily, keeping it reserved for true emergencies or larger home repairs. By setting a strict boundary around his emergency fund, he could face unforeseen challenges with a degree of confidence, knowing he had a safety net in place. Over time, Edward discovered the importance of financial mindfulness not only as a strategy, but as a mindset. Each financial decision he made contributed to his larger goal of staying in his home for as long as possible. He kept track of his spending in a small notebook, jotting down even minor expenses to help him stay within his budget. This practice gave him a sense of control over his finances, and it reinforced his commitment to aging in place without compromising his lifestyle. Edward also embraced local senior services that offered assistance. He attended financial planning workshops hosted by the community centre, where he learned tips on managing a retirement budget and avoiding common financial pitfalls. There, he connected with other seniors who shared similar goals of maintaining independence on a limited income. These workshops not only provided him with practical advice, but also reinforced that he wasn't alone in his journey. The camaraderie he found with other seniors motivated him to keep pushing forward, even when his finances felt tight. Through his journey, Edward learned that financial stability didn't always mean having a large income. It was more about making deliberate choices that aligned with his values and needs. By staying mindful of his spending, seeking support from his community, and being creative with his resources, he could maintain the lifestyle he cherished while preparing for future needs. Each careful decision brought him a step closer to his goal of living out his days in the comfort of his own home on his own terms. Edward's story serves as a reminder that, with careful planning and a bit of ingenuity, seniors can manage their finances in ways that support independence and resilience. By focusing on what mattered most, his health, his home, and his sense of self, he was able to craft a life that defied the notion that aging necessarily meant giving up control. For Edward, financial stability was more than just a means to an end. It was the foundation that allowed him to continue living with dignity, purpose, and peace of mind. 4. The importance of emotional well-being and self-worth. As Edward settled into his new routine with Sarah and Tom's help, he began to realize that, beyond physical support, there was something else essential to his well-being: his sense of purpose and self-worth. Though his physical needs were being met, Edward understood that aging gracefully required more than just practical solutions. He needed emotional sustenance, a way to keep his spirit engaged and his mind sharp. Over time, he discovered that maintaining his emotional health was as vital to his quality of life as managing his physical health or finances. Edward had always been an active person, involved in his community and connected with friends. But as he aged, those connections began to wane. Friends moved away or passed on, and social gatherings became less frequent. The days he once filled with activity became quieter, and he sometimes felt invisible. Yet, he knew that letting himself slip into loneliness would only harm him in the long run. So Edward made a commitment to himself. He would actively nurture his emotional health, finding new ways to keep his spirit uplifted and his mind engaged, even if that meant stepping out of his comfort zone. One of the first ways Edward worked on his emotional well-being was by establishing meaningful routines. He believed that having a sense of structure helped him find purpose each day, no matter how small the tasks. Every morning, he would make himself a cup of coffee and sit by the window, watching the sunrise and reflecting on things he was grateful for. This simple act of mindfulness grounded him, reminding him of the beauty that still existed in each day. By setting small goals, such as organizing his old photographs or tending to his potted plants, he felt a sense of accomplishment, giving him a reason to wake up each morning with a positive outlook. Community involvement became another source of emotional strength for Edward. Though he wasn't as mobile as he once was, he found ways to participate in local events and stay connected with people around him. The community centre offered activities specifically tailored for seniors, and once a week Edward attended a book club where he could discuss literature and meet other like-minded individuals. This weekly outing soon became a highlight in his schedule, offering him the intellectual stimulation he craved and the warmth of shared companionship. He found himself eagerly reading each new book selection, looking forward to the discussions and the sense of camaraderie they provided. Edward also developed a meaningful connection with Sarah and Tom's young daughter Grace, who came to see him as a grandfather figure. Every Saturday, Grace would bring her drawings over to Edward's house, proudly sharing her artistic creations. Edward would listen with genuine interest, asking her about each detail, and in turn, she would ask him for stories about his own childhood. Through Grace's youthful curiosity and wonder, Edward found joy and a renewed sense of purpose. His bond with her reminded him that he still had much to offer, that his presence was valued and his stories cherished. Beyond these personal connections, Edward also recognized the importance of contributing to others. He started volunteering at the local senior centre, helping with administrative tasks when he could. Edward knew that even his small acts of service made a difference, and the gratitude he received from others filled his heart with satisfaction. This act of giving back gave him a sense of purpose that went beyond his own life, connecting him to the larger community and reaffirming his self-worth. Volunteering became his way of leaving a legacy, a reminder that even in later years, each individual has something valuable to contribute. Maintaining his emotional health wasn't always easy. There were days when Edward struggled with the natural feelings of loss that aging can bring. However, he learned to be gentle with himself on those days, accepting his emotions as part of the journey rather than something to resist. In moments of solitude, he would sit quietly, allowing himself to feel sadness or grief, but he wouldn't let it consume him. Instead, he tried to focus on the things that brought him peace, such as listening to his favorite music or rereading letters from old friends. The act of staying engaged also kept his mind sharp and agile. Edward enjoyed crossword puzzles, which he did every afternoon to stimulate his mind. He would jot down interesting words and phrases he discovered, sharing them later with Sarah and Tom, who quickly noticed the renewed sparkle in his eyes. They began to ask for his opinions and insights more often, valuing the wisdom he'd gathered over his life. Knowing that he was respected and valued gave Edward an enduring sense of pride, strengthening his resolve to keep moving forward with grace and dignity. Edward also found solace in creative expression, revisiting an old hobby he had loved in his youth: painting. Though his hands weren't as steady as they used to be, he found a new joy in letting his imagination guide him rather than striving for perfection. Painting became a form of therapy, a way to release his emotions and find beauty in even the smallest brushstrokes. Each completed piece felt like a triumph, a celebration of his resilience and creativity. When Sarah saw his artwork, she encouraged him to display his paintings in her store. Edward was hesitant at first, but seeing his paintings bring smiles to customers' faces brought him a renewed sense of pride and fulfillment. Through these activities and connections, Edward discovered that emotional well-being was not only about feeling happy, but about feeling alive. It was the sense of vitality that came from engaging with the world, the simple joy of seeing his impact on others, and the quiet peace that came from knowing he had purpose even in his later years. His journey underscored that aging doesn't have to mean losing one's identity or sense of worth. Rather, it can be a time to deepen connections, embrace creativity, and rediscover what truly brings joy. Edward's story serves as a testament to the importance of emotional health in long-term quality of life. By staying connected to his community, nurturing meaningful routines, and embracing his unique role in the lives of others, he was able to maintain a positive outlook that enriched his days. Aging became less about what he could no longer do, and more about what he could still give, experience, and appreciate. His emotional well-being became the foundation of his resilience, allowing him to face each day with gratitude and strength, proving that the art of aging well is truly rooted in the heart. Fifth, building a safety net for peace of mind. Edward understood that, as he grew older, his circumstances might change unexpectedly. Even though he was determined to stay in his home and live independently for as long as possible, he recognized the importance of being prepared for anything. Knowing that he might face health issues or other sudden challenges, he decided to put a safety net in place to protect himself and ensure he could maintain his quality of life. This preparation gave Edward a sense of peace, knowing that he was taking proactive steps to secure his future. One of Edward's first priorities was creating an emergency fund. He knew that his fixed income didn't allow for much flexibility, but he started setting aside a small portion of his monthly Social Security benefits specifically for unexpected expenses. While it required discipline and careful budgeting, Edward managed to build up a modest fund over time. This reserve served as a buffer for medical costs, urgent home repairs, or any other unforeseen expenses. Just having it available gave him reassurance that, if something unexpected happened, he wouldn't immediately have to ask his family for financial support. Edward's emergency fund wasn't large, but it represented more than just money. It was a form of independence. He took pride in knowing that he had taken steps to protect himself, allowing him to live with dignity and self-sufficiency. This fund also alleviated his children's concerns, as they knew their father was prepared to handle smaller issues on his own. The conversations they'd had about his future were often difficult, but his family respected his decision to maintain control over his finances, understanding that it gave him a sense of empowerment. However, Edward knew that financial preparation alone wasn't enough. As part of his safety net, he needed reliable support systems in place. Over the years, his connection with Sarah and Tom had grown stronger, and they'd become more than just neighbours. They were his emergency contacts and trusted friends. Edward felt reassured, knowing he could rely on them in times of need. In return, he made sure to express his gratitude regularly, reinforcing their bond and showing his appreciation for their support. Edward took steps to communicate his wishes clearly to Sarah and Tom so they'd know how best to assist him if something happened. He created a list of emergency contacts, including his children, doctors, and a few neighbours he trusted. He gave Sarah and Tom a copy, as well as instructions on how to reach his family if they couldn't reach him directly. By organising these details in advance, Edward ensured that in case of an emergency, his friends and family would know exactly what to do and who to contact. Edward also invested time in researching community resources that could support him as he aged. His local senior centre provided various programs and services, some of which included transportation assistance, meal delivery, and even volunteer caregivers. He met with representatives from the centre, explaining his situation and learning more about the services available. Though he didn't currently need extensive help, he felt reassured knowing he could call on these resources if he ever faced a situation where Sarah and Tom couldn't be there or his family was unavailable. In addition to these services, Edward decided to set up a medical alert system in his home. While he was still relatively mobile and independent, he recognized the potential dangers of living alone. A simple medical alert device allowed him to reach help quickly if he ever experienced a fall or sudden health issue. This small device, which he wore around his neck, brought a sense of security to his daily life. It was an easy, affordable way to make sure he wasn't completely alone if something went wrong, and he encouraged other seniors in his community to consider a similar system. Edward also took steps to ensure his home was a safe environment. With Tom's help, he installed grab bars in the bathroom and added non-slip mats to areas where he might be at risk of falling. These modifications were inexpensive, yet invaluable in reducing his risk of injury. Edward realized that a bit of preventative action could go a long way in allowing him to stay in his home longer. Simple adjustments like these gave him additional confidence in his ability to live safely and comfortably on his own. Perhaps the most comforting part of Edward's safety net was the plan he put in place with his family. Though he wanted to avoid being a burden to his children, he felt it was important to have open discussions about his future. He and his children agreed that in case of a serious health decline, they would work together to explore all options, including in-home care or other arrangements that would preserve his quality of life as much as possible. His children respected his wishes to stay in his home, and they promised to support his decision for as long as it was safe. Edward also explored the idea of assigning a power of attorney to one of his children, a trusted step to ensure that his wishes would be honoured if he was ever unable to make decisions on his own. This role gave his children the ability to act on his behalf in medical or financial matters if he were incapacitated, and Edward felt at ease knowing that someone who understood his values and priorities would be there to make those choices. Setting up this legal structure in advance was an act of foresight that protected his interests and ensured his intentions would be respected. Through these preparations, Edward built a comprehensive safety net that allowed him to live each day with confidence and peace of mind. He felt reassured, knowing he could rely on his emergency fund, trusted friends, community resources, and his family. This network of support gave him the freedom to focus on the things that brought him joy, his daily routines, his friendships, and the small but meaningful pleasures of life in his own home. Edward's approach to creating a safety net is an inspiring reminder that, even as we face the uncertainties of aging, we have the power to shape our own futures. By planning thoughtfully and building support systems, seniors can face the challenges of aging with confidence, knowing they are prepared for whatever lies ahead. Edward's journey shows that with a bit of foresight, it's possible to age with dignity and independence, living fully and fearlessly even as life's challenges evolve. Choosing a fulfilling path. Edward's journey is a testament to the possibilities that aging with dignity, independence, and joy can bring. At 72, he had faced the same fears and uncertainties that many others do: the worry of losing his independence, the fear of becoming isolated, and the financial challenges of living on a fixed income. Yet, through a thoughtful, proactive approach to life's transitions, he was able to stay in his own home, cultivate meaningful relationships, and maintain his sense of self-worth and purpose. Rather than allowing life's difficulties to force him into a traditional elder care setting, Edward explored the options available to him, crafting a path that suited his needs and values. By forming a heartfelt bond with his neighbours Sarah and Tom, he not only found practical support, but also companionship that brightened his days and reminded him of the importance of connection. Their relationship showed that a little creativity and mutual respect can make living arrangements more than just a convenience. They can become a source of joy and stability. Edward's financial mindfulness played a central role in allowing him to age in place. With careful budgeting, a modest emergency fund, and an openness to local support, he managed his resources in a way that safeguarded his independence. His approach reminds us that financial planning, even on a limited income, can be a powerful tool in achieving our life goals. The safety net he established allowed him to face each day with confidence, knowing he was prepared for whatever challenges might arise. Perhaps most importantly, Edward never lost sight of his emotional well-being. He embraced community involvement, meaningful routines, and even old hobbies, all of which nurtured his mind and spirit. Through these practices, he discovered that aging didn't mean losing his identity or joy. Instead, he could find new ways to express himself, connect with others, and enjoy life's small moments. Edward's journey shows us that aging can be a period of growth, fulfillment, and resilience. He chose to craft his life thoughtfully, respecting his own needs while also valuing the relationships that brought him happiness. His story demonstrates that independence is not solely defined by physical capability. It is also shaped by our ability to create an environment that nurtures our spirit, honours our values, and gives us purpose. As we reflect on Edward's experience, we are reminded that every person's aging journey is unique. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to elder care, and there are countless ways to build a fulfilling life in later years. For some, a nursing home may provide the community and care they need, while others, like Edward, may find joy and independence in their own home. What's important is that each of us takes the time to consider what truly matters and seek solutions that align with those values. If Edward's story resonated with you, or if it sparked ideas about alternative ways to age with grace, independence and dignity, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your experiences in the comments, whether they are stories of loved ones or your own reflections on aging. How have you, or those close to you, navigated the challenges and joys of growing older? Your stories might inspire others to find new ways to approach this chapter of life. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Edward's life. If you found this video meaningful, please consider subscribing to our channel for more content like this. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update, and if you feel this message could help someone you know, please share it with them. Together, let's continue to explore the paths to aging well, to crafting a life of purpose, and to celebrating the wisdom that comes with each passing year. Aging is a journey, and with thoughtful choices, open hearts, and the courage to seek new paths, it can be one filled with dignity, independence, and profound joy. We're grateful to have you as part of our community, and we look forward to hearing your stories. Here's to finding fulfillment at every stage of life.